Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Dancing with Damage. I'm Ian, your resident philosopher.
And I'm Abby, your resident author.
And today, what is the purpose of a human life? Hey, Abby.
Simple topic, easy to digest, something short to start your day off or end your day.
There you go. We knock it out pretty early in the social blueprint, which we like to show you every episode. Hey, Abby.
Because of our friend Planthead.
Planthead wants to say hi as well. And I like the social blueprint because Abby and I put a lot of love into it, and we just feel it articulates what we're trying to say to you so much better than how we're doing here on this show. This show, I think, is a more like sit down fireside chat. Hey, Abby.
It's more fun. The book is very fun, but it's just us being whimsical and speaking about things we love, as opposed to coherently structuring our thoughts in a logical, scientific way.
That's right. So hopefully, if we leave you with more questions than answers, you can always turn to the book. We feel it actually has a pretty good structure in that sense. So the purpose of life. So why are we going to even bring this up, Abby? What utility does it serve for us?
Well, it is an important thing to establish if we're talking about a theory about, humans and how humans are supposed to act and behave and damage and why it exists. It makes sense to have the purpose of life in there somewhere. And I think it's one of your favorite parts of the entire theory. Is that true?
It really is, because it's an important starting point. A lot of how we get to where we get to in the book starts from like one stepping stone and then to the next stepping stone, but you can only get to the third if you've been to the second. Mm-hmm. You see, that's sort of like how stepping stones work.
Or a ladder.
Or stairs. There's a lot of things you have to kind of do one step at a time. In our view, this philosophy is not like a soccer field where you can just run all over the place and get to from one end to the other. If you just kind of you could run in S's, you could run in zigzags, you could run and then stop.
And run in circles.
That's right. So we feel the way to getting to answers is to follow sort of a chain of logic. And the purpose of human life is important because it's sort of like let's take soccer, for example. Mm-hmm. If you were to be playing soccer, but you didn't know that you scored points by kicking the ball in the net.
Gosh, I guess what would the players be doing then?
What would the players? Well, I don't know. They could be doing lots of things. They could be using their cleats to dig into the turf and create cities.
Holes, caves.
Yeah, they could become cave dwellers if they didn't know that.
They could climb the goalpost.
They could be swinging from the goalposts. They could be line dancing.
Or just taking a nap.
So it's very important that we kind of have a unified purpose of human life, because you can imagine if a soccer game didn't have sort of a purpose, which was to score goals following the rules of the game, then it wouldn't be very fun to watch, fun to play. It wouldn't be very good at all, would it?
No. So I happen to know that you have over the years asked a lot of people about this question. You ask them what they think. So what are some of the most common responses you received when you ask the everyday person what they think the meaning of life is, or the purpose of life, as you wrote?
I did write that. Do you think it's better to say meaning or purpose?
I think for the sake of this discussion, they're interchangeable. The meaning of life is the purpose of life, what you're supposed to be doing.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I do ask that question to people, poor people who sit down with me and just want to talk about something other than this. They usually get asked this question. But honestly, I think a lot of people are looking to discuss these issues, and maybe that's why you're watching this channel. And it's simply become sort of a taboo topic, eh, Abby?
I think it can be, because it feels like you're trying to uncover the entire mystery of the universe, which unto itself sounds big. But I think that if the purpose of life is true for everybody, then everyone should be able to access it in some part of themselves, because it's a part of who we are. But you never answered my question.
I don't even remember it. But I will say that I think one of the reasons people are reluctant to discuss the purpose of human life is because if you are honest with yourself and ask yourself what it is, the answer might impose various responsibilities on you. It's sort of like if you were a teacher, Abby, and you had a hunch some of your students were missing. If you asked where they were and you found out they were missing, what would it impose on you?
I don't know if I love this example only because if they're missing, it is my obligation to find them.
Perfect.
I have to, whether or not I have to notice they're missing. I'm not allowed to not notice they're missing.
Yeah, so let's take the example of the lazy teacher who doesn't want to maybe be so active. But then if they, find out for sure that students are missing, they have
An obligation,
big time obligation to go find.
fiduciary duty.
So in the same way, some people I think skirt around the issue of the purpose of human life to avoid having any obligation to fulfill it. But I remember your question now.
It is what have people said when you ask them, because Ian is very smart in that he likes to get other people's input, which is part of the reason we want to share everything with you, because we love learning and expanding and growing. So Ian has asked thousands of people over the last 20 years what they think the answers to the big questions are, and sort of that has made its way into the theory. So what are some of the most common answers you get when people ask you, or when you ask people, I should say, what the purpose of life is?
Do I have problems kind of going off in tangents?
You always come back, but I think your mind just works in mysterious ways.
It is a very mysterious situation in my noggin. But I mean, most days it works. So some answers we get, for example, to this question are that there is no purpose of life. We exist, and we just have to be happy with that. Which brings me to another answer that is common, which is that we should just strive to be happy. It's a very common answer. I don't love those answers. I respect that they are answers, but I don't think they're very helpful. Because again, if you were playing that soccer game and the player said, well, what are we trying to do here? And the referee said, just kind of like do your own thing.
Or win. Winning is it doesn't actually answer the question.
That's good. Yeah. So we want to let's point the players in the right direction here. So those are some common answers I get. You've probably heard some answers too, Abby?
One of the most common ones I hear is to have children, to procreate. And often those people have kids. And it makes me wonder, just as just a point of interest, do people have children because they think that's the meaning of life? Or do people say that's the meaning of life because they have children and it fundamentally changed them? I don't know.
So before I launch into our answer, we challenge you to think what you would say the purpose of human life is. I Googled it the other day,
You Googled.
I Googled it. And I will tell you, the answers on the internet are very similar to the answers I've received. It makes me wonder if people, when I've been asking them, have been secretly Googling it.
Because often if you're at a Christmas party and Ian sits next to you and you think, let's just talk about the weather or sports, you don't expect Ian to launch into the questions. Can I share one of the questions that you always ask people? Because maybe in a future episode, we'll ask them to give their answers.
I mean, for sure.
So one thing Ian always asks is that if you were the leader of your country, what are 3 things you would change?
Yeah, so we'll put it to you. If you were the leader of your country or your nation, what are 3 things you would either, change, policy you would add, or policy you would delete? Those kind of things. It's a sneaky question because essentially you're not really, I mean, it's nice to imagine yourself as leader of a country, or what the asker gets out of the answerer in that scenario is, what does the answerer think are the top priorities for their nation? What are the biggest issues that aren't being addressed? And it's funny because if you just ask people what do you think the biggest issues are in your country, they often won't really think about the answer or really give you a very good answer. But if you ask them, if you were the leader, what would you do? It's like somehow that mentally jujitsus them into giving a good answer. So if you have friends who might be interested in this topic, that's a very good question to get pretty deep answers out of people.
I think that once we explain what the purpose of life is, our definition, that all of those issues sort of on a different level lead back into the purpose of life.
I think she's right. I think once we figure I think the purpose of life, once you establish it, is sort of like the first domino that can fall, and then the chain reaction can be all the little policy issues that people have issues with. Okay, well, let's get right into it. We've seems like we've stalled long enough.
Just a corgi, don't mind him.
And so the way we approached it was in the book, we look a little bit at evolution. And I noticed, and Abby and I noticed when we were writing it, oh my goodness, speaking of evolution, here we have a highly evolved mountain corgi.
Watch himself at me. Okay, buddy.
He just loves these beanbag chairs, eh?
He does.
Are you happy? Are you happy you got, oh, you think that's a good thing to do as well? Yes, I know. It's tough, isn't it, to be a corgi because you're so low to the ground. And what can you make of all that?
I think he is excited to hear what the purpose of life is because he is young and is willing to learn and excited to learn.
There you go. So let's look at the ladder of evolution. That's sort of where we got our inspiration from. And also some religious principles. So let's take religious principles and just put them over here for a second. And let's look at evolution, the bedrock of a lot of science and biology. And we're going to put it over here. We're going to start with that. So if you look at the first sort of vertebrae that were kicking around the old planet Earth, hey Abby, you're going to probably start with your fish. Delicious fish, if you like fish. But back in the day, millions of years ago, I don't think people were eating fish so much back then. And so we have our fish, and then they kind of evolved into amphibians, and those guys kind of kicked around for a while, and then became reptiles. I have my dinosaur tie on.
For this topic, you thought about it?
I knew we were going to get to this point. And then, of course, our reptile friends became birds at some point, and those guys eventually became mammals, like these woeful creatures. And then humans started kicking around. Now, I will openly concede there are lots of overlaps and underlaps. That's a word.
It is now.
It is now in all this progression. But sort of generally, that's what I noticed in terms of how things went. And then we also noticed, hey, Abby, that there's sort of a pattern in how each of those groups treats their offspring.
Yes. Would you like to delve into that a little more?
I see. So you're going to be the corgi handler. I am very washed at this time. So we got our fish, and again, there's lots of exceptions to this. Anybody who's seen Finding Nemo will see an exception right away with the clownfish. But more or less,
it is right in the fields, eh?
Well, there you go. More or less, if you take a fish, they're going to sort of spawn their eggs, and they're going to kind of take off. The parents are going to take off. I don't think there's many fish that stick around to kind of do anything to protect their kids.
And if any of you are saying whales, they are mammals. Just to be super clear.
There you go. Abby is on top of the whale fish issue.
Before.
Issue.
Heard it? Yeah.
Well, that's true, you know, and they are
the issue.
that is the issue at this time. So, fun fact: the difference between whales and sharks. So whales, their fins. Do you know which way their tail fin is?
I don't.
Yeah. So I'm going to be a whale now. I'm going to be this is the back end of a whale. And woo, woo. But a fish goes wee wee wee.
They're the police of the sea.
Yeah, I'm not sure how well. Oh no.
Oh no, you've stolen my corgi.
Oh no, this was Archie loves biology.
And fun noises.
So I'm not even sure if that picked up very well. I guess it doesn't matter so much. What I'm saying is fish don't do much to sacrifice for their offspring. Then if we go to the amphibians, one thing I noticed about amphibians is a lot of them will like put their eggs on their back or like put them on like a stem and their eggs will stay there. And that's a little more than fish, but it's not too much. The parent is not sacrificing too much. And then if you look at reptiles, some reptiles are quite interesting parents. Look at turtles; they'll make little clutches in the sand. That's a nice little environment for their offspring.
Yeah.
Some snakes will make a little nest. It's certainly more work than an amphibian puts in, and way more work than a fish puts in on average. But again, a reptile is not going to rear its children very much. Although there are exceptions. You've got your crocodiles and so forth. Some people say crocodiles are the best parents, and that would be an exception to the rule.
Well, it wouldn't be hard to be the best parent when you have the jaw strength to murder everything. They're terrifying. They look like logs. They're murder logs.
That's right. That's right. So probably the parent of the reptile world is the crocodile. But again, on average, you're not putting in 9 to 5, for 10 years for these little reptiles.
Is that the genus we're talking about?
You know what? I always forget if it's the family or the genus. I don't think it's the kingdom. I think it's kingdom Animalia.
Yeah. Either way, the subgroup amphibians is not doing so hot.
Yeah, better than the amphibians, but not as good as some of the others. So then, Archie, you like this topic, eh?
Super into it.
It's like, make that weird noise again. Wee-oo, wee-oo. No, wait, what is... Yeah, that's the one. He is well adjusted.
We promise.
But he's
very loved.
Yeah, okay, it's okay. I won't make the whale noises anymore. I didn't realize that was such a
contentious issue.
Yeah, no, that's okay, buddy. So
you did reptiles, and I believe birds come next.
Oh yeah, birds. So birds. We all know birds. We know birds will make a little nest, a lot of them. And you often see that classic picture of the little chicks holding their mouths open, and the parent will give them something to eat.
So unlike the previous groups, I'm just going to say groups because apparently our biology is not up to snuff.
It is not.
The birds sit on the eggs for the entire gestational period, and then they continue to feed them for the first short while of their lives before leaving. I like to think of the great puffins who, the male puffins will swim for miles and miles to try to catch fish, and the women will not move. I think they're great little birds, but they're a little bit more engaged parents.
Absolutely. On average, more effort than a reptile. And then we go to our friends, the mammals. Mammals, on average, sacrifice a lot for their kids. We have the introduction of milk into the picture, sort of further showing that a parent will be showing more sacrifice and using more energy to help those children get the best start in the world possible. And then, okay, well, now we are humans. And humans, and there have been species that have evolved after humans, before humans. But in terms of sort of sophistication on the evolutionary scale, fair to say that humans are pretty well up at the top. Bye, Archie. He's like, you already talked about mammals. I'm out. But if you make that whale noise again, I'll be back in.
Yeah, because gorillas, elephants, lions, usually, for the most part, they stay with their families for their entire lives. But there is some independence there, and there is the ability to leave and sort of create your own family. Whereas humans of all the species tend to be the most interconnected for the entirety of our lives and the most interdependent for the entirety of our lives.
Yeah, and so a human, no matter what culture you're from, or even what point in history you're looking at, a human really isn't independent from its parents until like 14, 15. And then nowadays...
14, 15?
Sure, that's like on the more primitive side of humanity, I would say.
I thought you meant nowadays.
Nowadays, even when you're 18, 19, 20, usually you're still, often in developed first world countries, it's common to be still dependent on your parents, even up till your 20s and even further than that. And not only is the infant so dependent for so long on the parent, but also other members of the community, Abby?
It's true. We have a lot of what you would call social causes where we rally together. If someone has a tragedy, usually the community rallies together to try to lift that person up. They have fundraisers, they make meals so the people don't have to cook. Is that where you're getting at?
That and a child in a modern developed first world nation.
Oh, you mean normal stuff? That's
Well, not only are they dependent on their parents, but they might be dependent on
teachers,
the teachers or police officers or
school bus driver.
yeah. So you've heard that expression, it takes a village to raise a child. Okay, so why have we said all this? What I'm getting at is if you look at how evolution has paved the way for humankind, you will notice that the amount of sacrifice each kind of step has generally taken. It's sort of like the stock market. You ever seen the stock market? It kind of goes, boop, 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 boop. Oh no, I'll have to pick a different sound. Bip, bop, bip, bop, bip, bop.
Safe.
Archie won't tackle me if I do this sound. But generally, sometimes it's always going one way, even if it's like oscillating. If we look at that graph of evolution towards humans, it's always been trending from less sacrifice for the next generation to most sacrifice of the next generation. And Abby, we talked about a synonym for sacrifice in one of our other videos.
I think the answer is love for 100 points.
All you need is love for 100 points. That's it. You'll get 100 points. So we did talk about how love was a function of sacrifice, a short-term sacrifice of one person, generally
to benefit another,
for the long-term benefit of another,
or oneself.
Or oneself. Yes,
it's important.
Abby is hitting all the formula. And so, if you look at it that way and see how evolution has given us a purpose, it would be to sacrifice the most for the next generation of any creature, or because sacrifice is interchangeable with love, if you look at the equation, is to show the most love for the next generation of any animal. Now, if this is our scientifically given purpose, then let's look at what a lot of religions say that we should be doing with our lives, and what the whole point, how to get into heaven or how to be the best person. It's usually to do to others what you would have them do unto you. In other words, to give of yourself as you would want to be given to you. In other words, sacrifice for others. And so, actually, the purpose of human life for religion and a scientific-minded person is identical. That humans should give the most they can, and in particular, to the next generation. Hey, Abby.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about that science and religion are so united in this, but it's not something we've heard other people talking about, really.
Not so much. And that's why we really are excited about our theory, because as we progress, we're going to be using the purpose of human life to help us understand why damage exists and also how to solve damage. But anyway, for today's episode, I think it's just important, Abby, that if we get anything across today, it's that we really want to hear what you think the purpose of human life is. Do you agree that it's logically sound, that it could be to show the most love of any creature, compared to any creature, for the next generation?
I think the next episode we're probably going to get into more examples of what we're talking about, more concrete examples so you can see it. But your homework tonight, because I love giving out homework. Not really.
She is a teacher.
I am a teacher, but I think this is helpful. I want you, next time you do something that is an act of love or an act of sacrifice, either for yourself or someone else, I want you to take a second and think about how it makes you feel. So when we come back next time, you have that answer. Like, let's say you give up your seat on the bus for someone. That's a small sacrifice. It's a small act of love, but it is still a sacrifice for the benefit of someone else. And it might make their whole day long-term benefit compared to the 5-minute, 10-minute bus ride. Or what's another example that you could see in your day-to-day life that might not be huge, but could be just a small microcosm of love?
So a small sort of itty bitty love.
A lovelet.
A love it behavior. So to me, a good example is, let's say you're at the airport and someone bumps into you, and it's not your fault, and they spill coffee on you. So the knee-jerk reaction is to assume a powerful, indignant stance and to belittle that person. How dare you do that? What were you doing? Watch where you're going. Don't you pay any attention to what you're doing? So the person who got the coffee spilled on them could become a dominant figure, which is the selfish thing to do, because it's a short-term gain to inherit that power over the stranger, but long-term pain because in the end, it's going to probably not help your relationship with that person if they're going to help you fix this issue. So an example of love, well, let's say that, if you've seen a Hallmark movie, usually
We love Hallmark movies.
we love Hallmark movies. We'll play the scenario. So, Abby, I will pretend to spill coffee on you and you get mad at me, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
How dare you? This is my bestest suit. I'm angry because I have to go on a plane and I smell like coffee, which I would anyway, but now it's differently.
Well, I think you should have been watching where you were going too.
Grr.
So that could be a very common escalation brought on by a reflex that was a selfish reflex. Okay.
Dealing within the airport. This is a very I can see that most people are like this, but if someone spilled coffee on me, I'd probably apologize. Canadian, eh?
Well, let's take a different tact. I'll spill coffee on you and you treat me like a fellow human being. How about that? Blah.
Blah, are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm so sorry about your shirt.
It's okay. I have more shirts. Did you trip on something? Is your ankle okay?
I'm fine. I feel bad. Let me get you jubes from the gift shop to show.
He just wants jubes.
Yeah, that's really what's going on here. This has been a con. This whole thing.
A long con.
Long
Yummies.
It's delicious. So, and we get these examples, but they're not completely unrealistic. And so when Abby's asking about an example of love, a small example of love, it's to hold your temper. And the reason it's an example of love is because it's a short-term sacrifice, because it's tough to do. Our instinct when someone does something unjust to us is to raise our voice and accuse. That's what that's what a young person will do. That's what an immature person will do. We see this behavior a lot on reality shows where we know these are not well-adjusted behaviors, but it is actually harder to keep your cool in those sort of interpersonal conflicts. And it's an example of love because you sacrifice that dominant position, but in the end, it's a long-term, but you won't stress out the person who probably feels bad, and you may achieve a good resolution through agreeable behavior.
Yeah, and if it was you who accidentally spilled the coffee or bumped into someone, you would hope they would show you the same kindness. And maybe showing someone that kindness will cause them to then in turn be kind to others. And now we're creating a domino effect of kindness, which we could do with in this world.
Yeah, and that's a great example, because again, we have our religion side of thing that says do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This other side saying you should sacrifice, especially for the next generation. So those are examples of love. Big examples of love we'll talk about later. I think this episode I'm pretty happy where we're at.
That sounds good. So anyway, your homework is big or small, what you would define as an example of love. Feel free to leave it in the comments. What some examples of love you think about in your life or you've witnessed, but think about how it makes you feel. And we're going to talk about that next episode. Ian?
Oh, yes. Coming at you from Dancing with Damage.
Have a great day.